There is an expression: you can endlessly watch three things: how the fire burns, how the water runs, and how another person works. That's why throughout the video you can see me sorting out a bunch of garbage, dirt, rocks and truths. And during the video I will tell you one ancient legend. And I will tell you why I sort garbage at all and what danger each waste poses. I am Valeria and this is the Off-Road Ranch. When I was little, I had a big purple book called Myths and Legends of Ancient Greece. I love it very much and read it many times. It told about the gods living in Mount Olympus, about their confrontation with each other, love and quarrels, about the relationship between gods and people, curses, falling in love, betrayal, revenge, about the exploits of heroes, about fantasy creatures such as centaurs, harpies, Pegasus, Minotaur, about ancient artifacts such as shields, swords, horns, and others. And among them, there was the Golden Fleece, which I want to tell about. What is the connection between the Golden Fleece, the myth of ancient Greece, and this large mountain of garbage that I'm sorting, going through every pebble and every tiny piece of metal, plastic or glass? For me, there is definitely a connection. But first, a little more about the myth of the Golden Fleece, which appeared about 2,800 years ago. Once upon a time, the king on one of the states, which was located on the territory of modern Greece, almost sacrificed his children because of the deception of children's stepmother. But the mother of the children was Nephele, the goddess of clouds. And when the children were about to be sacrificed, she sent them a wonderful ram with a sparkling golden wool. As soon as the children sat on his back, he carried them across the sky far, far away. During the flight, the sister got tired, couldn't hold on to the ram, and fell into the sea. The sea was named after her, and now it is called the Dardanelles Strait. It is located in Turkey. The boy reached a safe place. An unusual ram with a golden wool took him to a place called Colchis, where the king was waiting for him. The king took the boy into his upbringing, sacrificed a ram, and placed the golden wool on an old oak tree. The wool of this ram is called the Golden Fleece. The soothsayers warned the king that his reign wouldn't be in danger as long as this wool was on the tree. But approximately at the same time, in ancient Greece, a man named Jason was the heir to the throne, and the king in ancient Greece promised him the rain if he retrieved the Golden Fleece from Colchis. Thus begins the myth of the Argonauts, who set off to face danger on a long journey with adventures and trials. I am not able to tell these wonderful stories in my video, but I can talk about why the Golden Fleece is true. What was the basis for people to come up with this myth, which has existed for almost 3,000 years in various variations, and how this myth relates to me? The fact is that Colchis is the central part of the country Georgia, and the myth itself is associated with ancient human activity, gold panning. The mountain rivers of Georgia are rich in gold ores and gold particles. The inhabitants of Colchis used sheep wools to pan for gold. They dipped sheep's wool into gold-bearing mountain rivers, or stretched it onto a wooden frame and immersed it in a stream of water. Gold particles carried downstream collected in them and gradually settled. The fleece was hung on trees to dry before the gold was shaken out or combed out. During the times of ancient trade, early Greek sailors could see such gilded skins in wools in their carcasses, and upon arriving home, they talked about it in their country. Over time, their stories were further transformed into the myth of the Golden Fleece. To this day, variations of the Golden Fleece are often used in the Republic of Georgia, especially for the coats of arms and flags of Western Georgia, since this part of the country is historical Colchis. For example, On the coat of arms of the city of Kutaisi, the ancient capital of Kolkis, the golden fleece is depicted. Thus, from generation to generation, through hundreds and thousands of years, through the books of historians and geographers, we can touch the past for a moment and see the subtle connections that have always and still determine our present, which we do not even think about. And if you haven't read Myths and Legends of Ancient Greece, try it. Nowadays, books are losing relevance, especially worthy books, wise, old, recognized as classics of literature, which will tell you about life and introduce you to a different understanding of things. Just as the inhabitants of ancient Georgia collected gold piece by piece and then meticulously sorted it from the skin of a ram, so I select every piece of glass, plastic, brick, metal and slate. The title of the video is partly meant as a joke, but partly not. I find interesting things. For example, early 20th century bottles made of thick glass in unusual shapes, various metal parts, 19th century locks, 18th century nails, old light bulbs, old fabrics. The things will obviously not be used in the future in household for living, but it is interesting to find such archaeological things in person. In addition, the people of Georgia collected small pieces for profit, letting the rest of the water pass through, and I do the opposite. I collect small pieces to throw away, leaving the rest of the clean earth so that it will bring profit in the future. But let's talk about why I decided it necessary to sort the huge pile of debris, stones, bricks, soil and roots that heavy equipment collected when preparing the site for construction and leveling the top layer. I decided to spend weeks sorting it all, different types of garbage, stones, roots, and separating it all from the ground. But if you think about it, this is a long, tedious, boring, scrupulous task, which moreover doesn't bring profit. And I heard a lot of unsolicited advice about this mountain in sorting garbage. For example, different people told me just to leave the pile where it is. To my question about what would happen next to it and who would sort it out, people had no answer. Also, they told me to take the soil back from where I took it. And people were not bothered by the fact that it was full of garbage. They suggested simply bringing in new soil and covering the garbage on top with new soil. I was offered to take out this mountain of garbage and earth. To my question about how much heavy equipment this would require and who would give me so much money for this, they didn't give me an answer. Also, they simply offered to take the soil somewhere not far from me, where I don't live and where no one will see it. That is, make a dump behind a house. For some reason, for some people, it is a norm not only to litter the ground, but to do it directly near the place of residence. And I've been told many times that I am wasting my time because there is a simpler solution, without thinking that the simple solution doesn't equal the right solution. Firstly, large equipment removes the top layer of soil from 120 to 90 centimeters. And this is very fertile soil, topsoil that forms over hundreds and thousands of years and is very rich in nutrients that cannot simply be added from fertilizers. This is the soil that is most favorable and nutritious for growing something. And accordingly, if we talk about the economic component, it is expensive soil. Throwing it away is a very stupid decision, especially since I plan to plant a garden. But let's take a look at the components of garbage. These are plastic, old smelly clothes, ferrous metal, non-ferrous metal, glass and slate. The most harmless thing on this list is clothes, but only if they are natural materials. Any synthetics in clothes are a form of plastic, which, like any plastic, takes hundreds of years to decompose. As it decomposes, its particles are carried throughout the soil, ending up in groundwater, and then into our drinking water and food. And of course, into my food and my future harvest. Plants and apples will grow in the soil. Bees will live in the future. Fish will swim in the pond. I will walk on this earth. There is no doubt that plastic is everywhere now. According to scientists, plastic is in the soil, in the water, in every food we eat, and even in thunderclouds. And I especially don't want to worsen the situation by deliberately leaving plastic in the ground when I see it. And in general, we should learn not to litter where we live and to collect and recycle garbage. Glass. Everything is completely clear with glass. Even the smallest piece of glass can seriously cut you and cause an infection. And of course, I want to walk safely on my land. However, given the amount of glass, I still have a lot of work to do. Slate. Slate is perhaps even more dangerous. It contains asbestos, which causes lung diseases when inhaled, bronchitis, pleurisy, and even lung cancer. I don't want to create for myself and others a huge additional invisible hidden source of inflammation, cancer, lung disease, intestinal disease, and so on. Even if not inhaled, asbestos and other hazardous chemicals are carried by wind and rain, penetrate into the soil and water, and again, pose a danger to flora and fauna. I am very thankful to my subscribers who care about me, suggesting in previous videos to use gloves and respirators in order not to harm the health. As for ferrous metal and non-ferrous metal, everything is clear here too. Firstly, there is a lot of rusty wire, rusty nails, and a rusty metal mesh fence. Of course, all this carries risk of damage to property. For example, car wheels, trimmer saws, and other tools, as well as risk of injury if a rusty nail accidentally ends up under your foot. Non-ferrous metal doesn't rust, but nevertheless, it is also sharp and also dangerous. In addition, I sell part of the metal that meets the requirements for scrap metal and make a small profit from it. And finally, bricks, if we consider them as garbage. Pieces of bricks are not dangerous to the earth, since they are a natural material, but they are dangerous to the wheels of a car. You can also trip over them or damage tools, chainsaw, trimmer, and others when working with the ground. In addition, good large pieces of brick can be used in a secondary way, such as for a stove, part of a wall structure, an outdoor brick stove, in addition to a garden landscape, and so on. As for roots, I also put them in separate piles to burn them when they dry. Firstly, they are simply inconvenient in fertile soil, and secondly, they can cause plants and trees to regrow, and I spent 5 months getting rid of them. Dear viewer, please tell me why cleaning after yourself or others is considered something unworthy, shameful, and useless. Why is it okay for people to litter where they are, throw away plastic and paper when no one is looking, and not clean up after others if they see litter in nature or on the street? Many of us raise the issue of the world's trash problem, but only 1% of people will look around and take at least their own trash with them, let alone other people's trash. And I'm not even talking about studying this issue more deeply and taking some initiatives. In addition, It turns out that if one person leaves garbage, then this is bad. But when you are one of many who left garbage, then this is already normal. How do I sort through a heap? In general, I think it's already clear in the video. First, I collect all the debris visible on the surface. For glass, I have a separate small container, and as it is filled, I pour it into big bags with glass. I throw the bricks, slate and stones aside and then separately collect them in a wheelbarrow and place them in separate piles. Stones in a pile with stones. Slate to the place where slate is stored. Bricks, I divide them into two parts. I divide broken bricks and more or less intact bricks in two separate piles. Plastic and cloth. I either throw them in the other direction so as not to interfere with bricks and stones, or I immediately carry a bag for them with me. I put plastic and clothes in identical bags, because such mixed old waste with an unknown composition, with soil and other waste, will no longer be subject to separate sorting for recycling. After all visible debris has been removed, I can work with a rake and shovel. I clear the flat area of debris, collect roots with a rake, and make part of the area clean. After that, I spread the soil onto this prepared area with a shovel and use a rake to evenly spread the soil. All the fertile land free of trash will be used for farming, so I spread with a shovel. Sometimes I remove 5 wheelbarrows at a time, but sometimes with each blow of the shovel in the mountain, I hit stones, pieces of bricks, glass, roots, clothes, plastic. Here are lots of roots. Often, I cannot take a whole shovel full of earth because the debris gets in the way. Then I pick the debris out of the ground and continue working with a rake or shovel. Sometimes I have to sit and dig out pieces of glass or slate from the ground. As I said earlier, for me, these are the most dangerous materials. I can already recognize the sound of glass and slate at the slightest touch of a shovel on them. And it seems to me that I will soon notice microparticles of glass even in the dark. I have a simple rule. As soon as I see glass, I remove it. I use a rake to push dirt and ground from the top of the mountain down. When I rake dirt and ground down a mountain, I later trample down the soil, creating a slight slope. Therefore, from time to time I dig, including the ground I walk on. I don't want to create a new mound near the mountain, since there may still be debris under this ground. Often I come across tangled tubers of small roots that cannot be dug or pulled out immediately. It is necessary to dig underneath and above to free them from the ground and get the entire tuber of roots. Sometimes I come across a metal wire several meters long. It might begin in plain sight, and then it is all covered with earth. I cannot pull this kind of wire out, so I have to dig around it, always be aware of it, and go around its side. Dear viewer, if you think this work in this video are important, I ask you to support me in developing the Off-Road Range project in ways that are accessible to you. It could be a subscription, a comment or a like, or perhaps you will tell about my channel on social networks, or donate, for example, in Monero, or by subscribing to my Patreon, and I will plant a tree and name it after you. I would really like to reach 10,000 subscribers by Christmas Eve, and you can help me a lot. Unfortunately, At the time of editing the video, I didn't have time to sort out the mountain completely. The range requires a lot of care, and the pile took longer than I expected. The processes were greatly slowed down by the rains, which sometimes lasted for several days. So now I'm still working through my trash heap in search of treasure. The real treasure here is clean, fertile soil, especially against the backdrop of current major environmental problems that are not being solved in any way, but are only hushed up, hidden, solved with bribes, mutual services, and agreements by people above, not allowing ordinary people to influence and interfere in the processes. I have a separate video on this topic about how distorted the solution to internationally important problems is. How distorted the solution to problems is through charity. How distorted charity by itself, and what kind of charity we need to make it really work and to solve these problems by ourselves without business and governments.
When I find something like that, I know that there will be no glass later, deeper, because as usual it's a final layer, some old cloth. Oh, how do you like this nail? Yes, it's a nail. Metal. This is metal, rusted metal from can. These are some thick bottles. That's why it's impossible to work here. It is so slowly. You cannot even dig properly because every time you find some garbage. I already know that there will be glass also. Who tell after that animals are dangerous? The most dangerous is human. There is definitely no glass because I would hear sound. This is metal, by the way, also metal. Yeah, glass. I was wrong, here is glass, but there is so much ground that glass didn't move, so there was no sound. Some rusted metal. One more time. As usual, this plastic goes together with glass, and I have a feeling that glass is always wrapped in plastic. So I was pretty surprised that I didn't hear sound of glass, but as you see, yes, there is still glass in this plastic. This archaeology makes me mad. I honestly don't like this job. So when people say that you should do only what you like, no, it will not happen like that. You have to do what you don't like in order to achieve what you want. That is the truth.
So for me, cleaning up trash is a long, tedious, slow process that doesn't bring profit and doesn't give quick results. But that doesn't mean that it's not important. Do you know how contaminated the soil is you buy your products from? Would you want to eat apples or any produce from contaminated land? Who can tell you how polluted the soil is where the products are grown? Who wants to pay for land cleanup if sometimes it is easier to pay a fine or give a bribe or buy a quality certificate or make a fake certificate for clean land? But about my land, I can say with a 100% guarantee that I have an environmentally friendly product, because I remove garbage from every square inch of land with my own hands, and you see it with your own eyes. Who knows, maybe I will find gold in this pile. The point of this video was to convey that some work is boring, monotonous, slow, unpaid, but critically beneficial for nature, health, and people. And perhaps it requires that you do it, rather than decide that someday someone else will do it. Because it is not about want to do, it is about need to do. It was Valeria, the Off-Road Ranch. Wish you all the best and see you soon.